around the corner. Bill Riley, voice of Utah Athletics, joins us on 365 Sports. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoke as well. Bill, thank you for your time. There was this back and forth of what nobody for such a long time knew what was going to happen with the schools in the Pac-12 and all of that. I know that everything has changed, but can you kind of give us from your perspective what was that like, not knowing for a while of what was going to happen?
Well, I mean, it was really awful for in a lot of ways, just because Utah had found such a home in the Pac-12 conference, and then it looked like the Pac-12 was going to survive, and then it was on life support, and then somebody pulled the plug. And then you just don't know. You have a pretty good idea that maybe Utah is going to be accepted into one of these other power conferences, but until it happens, you just don't know. And I don't think it's too unlike where the Big 12 was a couple of years ago, when they were down to about 8 schools and Brett Yormark had to get on his horse. So I think Utah fans always felt pretty good about their chances of landing in a power conference. But you guys know, until it actually happens, there's some uncertainty.
Bill, how confident is this team, even as they change conferences, given the fact that they've been able to stave off the transfer portal for the most part, and they kind of have thrown in nickels and gotten back dollars out of that in the past anyway, going into the new league that they're picked as one of the favorites?
I think they're really confident, and one, because of the success they've had before, but also because of what they've got coming back. You guys know when you get a veteran quarterback coming back who's won 2 conference championships, you feel pretty good about that. You've got, new weapons around him in the pass game, like Dorian Singer, Micah Pittman, Damian Alford from Syracuse. And then, of course, because you've been there and done it at a high level in the Power 5 league like the Pac-12, there's a lot of confidence around this team. Now, fans, they say one thing. I can tell you, having been around Kyle Whittingham and the guys, they know this league's probably it's not quite as top-heavy as maybe the Pac-12 was with Oregon, Utah, Washington, USC, but there's probably a lot more top-to-bottom balance in the Big 12 than there was in the Pac-12 conference. So there's not going to be many easy Saturdays, and, of course, it's new destinations too. But I would say coming in, just based on what they're bringing back, this is a pretty confident team.
Bill, Cam Rising gets a lot of the headlines as far as his return for good reason, but there's a Texas boy from Katy that's coming back as well, and Brant Keithy had a nice start to the season and then got injured and missed the rest of the season. But your thoughts on just his return and how he, along with the new weapons and those returning as well, all kind of meshed to give Cam Rising some good options?
Well, he's the most proven offensive weapon in this offense coming back. Before his injury, he was trending toward not just all-conference status, but all-American status, and probably a top 3-round draft pick as well. The other good news for him is he and Cam Rising have been playing together their entire careers at Utah. So Brant Keithy, much like Cam Rising, it took him a little while to get back, but now that they're back, they're healthy, they're 100%. And Keithy wants to play in the NFL like Rising does. And this is a chance to show scouts and teams that they're both healthy and they're back to where they once were.
I said this to Kyle Whittingham the week that they played Baylor, and I share this with anyone that we have that covers or is a part of Utah that we haven't had on. And I had someone once tell me that watching Utah play or playing Utah was like trying to play an angry ball of razor blades. and you can use that now, Bill, if you haven't already heard it, but does that describe them almost to a T?
They're a really tough, physical, always coming at you football team. And I'm sure whenever you told Kyle Whittingham that, he loved it.
He did.
Because he's always prided himself on physicality, on toughness, and no nonsense, too. This has not been a program that's had very many, if any, issues over the last 20 years with personnel because they've created a culture here. You guys know the best programs in collegiate athletics, or frankly even pro sports, are the ones where the athletes run the locker room because the culture is good. And that's what Utah's had here for the last 17, 18 years.
Bill, I don't think I can picture Kyle Whittingham smiling. I know he has. But just the way he is, what is the giddiest or happiest you've ever seen him?
When they've beaten USC.
Yeah, we're all like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Winning conference championships will do that too. He's been pretty happy. Every game is a little bit different. There's also a little rivalry game that Big 12 folks are going to get used to seeing. It's called the Holy War.
Oh, yeah.
You would never have known that Kyle Whittingham actually went and was an All-American linebacker at BYU because there's no love whatsoever for his alma mater. And now that that's a league game again and something on the line more than bragging rights, he tends to get kind of excited too, especially when they win in Provo.
So, I guess in your opinion, are you excited about the fact that they're in the same league together? I know that there's a lot of bad blood. There's a lot of heated talk on social media and whatnot. Some BYU fans hate this because, like, hey, we were in the Big 12, we were doing our thing, and here comes Utah. How do you view it?
I love it.
Okay.
Guys, we've had so much taken away from us in collegiate athletics in recent years. The fact that we still have rivalries like this, and that these two teams are actually coming together now, I absolutely love it. I mean, I absolutely positively love it because it's such a great rivalry. They're separated by 40 miles. It's so very good. And the nation hasn't really seen it on the highest level. They just simply haven't. But now that they're both in a Power Four conference, the whole country is going to get a chance to see this rivalry front and center. And I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it seems like it's known by a lot of people who are a part of it, but it's not thought of sometimes like Auburn, Alabama, or Texas OU, and it should be, right?
Well, it doesn't have the history of, those games are not only tough rivalries, but a lot of times you'll have, national championship implications in them. So I understand why it's not. But from a pure hatred standpoint and a vitriolic standpoint between the fan bases, it's every bit the equal of those two rivalries.
So, Bill, I'm sure you've seen, or maybe you have or haven't, but EA Sports with the video game coming back is rolling out their list. And lists are just commonplace. There's a ton of accounts that do the best or worst of whatever thing in college football. Rice-Eccles getting a lot of love as one of the toughest places to play in the country. And when people are planning out the new teams they want to go visit, Utah is obviously in that mix. What makes Rice-Eccles such a tough place to play? And what can folks who are maybe deciding, like, should I go to that game in Salt Lake and check it out? What would be kind of your selling point for why it's a great place to watch a game?
Well, I mean, it's sold out. It's been sold out every game for the past, I think, 60. I don't know what the number's up to now, 75 straight sellouts. It's a beautiful stadium. It's relatively new. It was renovated for the Olympics back in 2002. They've done other renovations to it. You've got the mountains as a backdrop. I mean, no offense to the hills of Central Texas, but the Rocky Mountains are absolutely beautiful as a backdrop in the stadium. And then it's loud, and they played a lot of big games there. Salt Lake City's a great place. I mean, I've lived here for 23 years. The restaurant scene, the downtown life, you're not far from downtown. It's a great setting for college football. And Utah's been good. So when you're good, you sell games out and the fans get loud. But it's a great spot. And I would tell any of the Texas schools, whether it's Baylor, whether it's TCU, although TCU fans have been out here. Utah, TCU played some great games back in the Mountain West days. Mm-hmm. Texas A&M, Houston fans, make a trip out here, especially if it's in late September, early October, mid-October, because the changing leaves and the cool in the air, it's fantastic. Now, Baylor's going to be out here in the second week, so it'll still be warm. It won't be quite as warm probably as it was when we were down there last year, but it'll still be warm.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because that was a game in which Baylor, and of course they had a dreadful season, and that might have been one of those that allowed the slippage to start because they didn't dominate, but they were in control of that game, and then all of a sudden Utah just kept chopping wood, whatever you want to say, made the big pick, won the game. Would you have thought when you left that stadium that Baylor would be a 3-9 team?
No, I wouldn't have. I could see that there were a few flaws, but I thought they'd be a 5 or 6 win team last year. Mm-hmm. I thought they had enough talent on that team. I know they were trying to figure out the quarterback position a little bit, kind of like Utah was. They were still waiting to see if Cam Rising was going to play. Obviously, that didn't happen. But I thought Baylor was better. I thought they had more talent than what they showed last year. Was that kind of the consensus around that place?
Absolutely. And then we wondered, honestly, and this is just being completely transparent, is how much talent did they actually have? And they've, of course, filled up the transfer portal more than they did combined in the 2 or 3 years prior to that. You're a University of Kansas graduate, I believe. I
am.
I don't see KU on the schedule. Is that somewhat disappointing or a relief?
Well, to be fair, Utah's schedule is very, very friendly for a first year in the league. Toughest stretch is probably opening up in Stillwater and then coming home with Arizona. I'd love to go back, although to be fair, I'm kind of happy. I don't necessarily want to go call a college football game at Arrowhead Stadium as much as I love my team. I kind of want to get there when they have that new look. Mm-hmm. So, but my mom and dad live in Kansas City, so it's one of those good news, bad news things. But at the end of the day, I'm going to look forward to coming back to my alma mater and going out to Manhattan and making some trips around the area that I used to know when it was the Big Eight.
Well, also you get to make a trip back to Allen Fieldhouse, which is never a bad thing for anyone, no matter if you have no attachment to Kansas at all. The best atmosphere I think I've ever been in for a sporting event. Were
they? Yeah, is that an away game for you? I know the schedule was released today.
No. Kansas and Kansas State are coming here this year.
Golly.
Yeah, I'm not. The big clearly Brett Yormark didn't consult with me and my travel plans to see friends and family when he put those schedules together.
Well, I guess the Big 12 basketball tournament will be there though, so you can get back for that at some point in March. With Utah and Arizona being the teams that last year were a part of that incredible mix, as you mentioned, of the upper tier. Colorado trying to figure itself out year 2 with Dion, and Arizona State trying to figure it out itself. Would you say that Utah, Arizona are on the tier of the incoming 4, and that at Colorado, Arizona State would be the second tier?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, guys, I'm just telling you, don't drink the Dion Kool-Aid yet. They were talking. I've heard guys, and I love some of the analysis, some of the analysts who are talking, but them talking about Colorado competing for a conference championship this year, that's not going to happen. Arizona State, I like Kenny Dillingham, and those kids played really hard for him last year, but he's probably still another year and a half away from being a serious player, meaning somebody that could challenge. I kind of put my tier like this, at least straight away. I think Utah and K-State, to me, are my top 2 right now. Mm-hmm. Then I kind of see Oak State, KU if Daniels is healthy and plays, and then trying to figure out who Arizona is in that group too. And then I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people don't have them there yet, but you guys know this. Iowa State brings back 20 starters.
Yep.
And Matt Campbell's team play really, really hard.
Yep. And we've debated it. We did our forms, and we've discussed it. We all released ours, and you're pretty much on par, close to exactly what we talked about. In fact, I even mentioned out of, let's say, 100 media members, if there were, how many would have at least Utah, K-State in some order of 1 and 2. And I maybe not quite as much as I thought, but I bet about 3/4 of those who vote probably will.
I think so, too. If anything else, there may be some people that just aren't sure about Cam Rising's health and maybe Grant Keith's health. I can tell you guys, because they played in the spring football game and I've been around them. They're 100% ready to go. But I understand that people still have those question marks because they haven't played in over a year.
Bill, I'll tell you this much. 16 teams is a lot of teams to try to know about and sort through. That's all I know.
It is. It's a lot. By the way, why are we keeping the 12? Why, if we're going to rebrand, if we're going to add, Allstate Insurance or whatever, I mean, the league's only 27 years old. It's not like the SEC. It's not like the Big Ten. Why not just make it the Big 16?
Well, because I think that there's a chance it could end up being
more realignment.
I just come up with a name that's not boring or stale, but somewhat generic, where no matter what happens with craziness of realignment, it still makes sense. The SEC will always, no matter what, not have to worry about the name of their conference.
Yeah, we're right there
Well,
with you.
you're right.
Though. Yeah, we're right there with you. I mean, it doesn't make sense to go numerically at this point, especially when there's so much uncertainty. And I don't know if they add more teams, but I think just the possibility of that, just why change it to 16 when it could be 18, in 2 years from now is the only thing that I could think of from that standpoint. But we're right there with you. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Are you guys going to be making the trip up for the game in September?
Paul, you're not making that one.
I'm to be determined. When
You don't have it on your schedule.
I don't have it on my schedule yet, but I would like to. I went to Salt Lake when Baylor played there. Very walkable downtown, by the way. Something they should say. Yeah. It's very walkable.
We do high school football here on Friday nights. So a couple of us, Craig and I, will both be high school football. So getting there would not be a possibility. But I've heard so much about that Rice-Eccles and how beautiful it is. But we hope to see you. If you go to Big 12 Media Days, we'll be in Vegas.
That sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me on, by the way.
Thank you, too. Great to have you, Bill. Bill Riley, voice of the Utah Utes, Utah Athletics, with us on 365.